Part 1: The Fall. The blueprint spread across my desk told a story of dreams made concrete. The Meridian Resort project, my masterpiece, represented 18 months of sleepless nights and countless revisions. At 28, I'd become the youngest senior architect at Thornton & Associates, the most prestigious firm in Seattle. My fingers traced the curved lines of the main pavilion, remembering the exact moment inspiration had struck during a sunrise walk along Puget Sound. Working late again? Damien's voice startled me from my focused trance. I looked up to find him leaning against the doorframe of our shared apartment office, his tailored suit perfectly pressed despite the late hour. His dark hair caught the lamplight, and those green eyes held the warmth that had captured my heart 18 months ago. The client presentation is in 3 days, I explained, gesturing to the chaos of design surrounding me. I want everything perfect. He crossed the room, his expensive cologne preceding him, and placed his hands on my shoulders. His touch sent familiar shivers down my spine. You're brilliant, Belle. They'd be fools not to approve it. Damien Blackwood had entered my life like a whirlwind at a mutual friend's gallery opening. A business consultant specializing in corporate acquisitions, he possessed the kind of confidence that drew people into his orbit. Our romance had unfolded like something from a film, complete with spontaneous weekend trips, surprise flowers delivered to my office, and conversations that lasted until dawn. Tell me about it, he urged, settling into the chair beside me. Walk me through your vision. I should have noticed the calculation in his interest. Should have questioned why a business consultant cared so deeply about architectural specifications. But love makes us blind, and I was desperately, completely blind. For the next hour I shared everything. The innovative sustainability features, the unique structural supports that would allow for panoramic ocean views, the integration of local materials to honor the coastal environment. Damien listened with rapt attention, asking insightful questions, making notes on his tablet. I thought he was being supportive. I didn't realize he was cataloging everything for theft. 3 nights before the presentation, I discovered the truth by accident. Damien had left his laptop open while taking a late-night call, something about his work being urgent. I'd merely intended to close it to save battery when a notification flashed across the screen. An encrypted file transfer, nearly complete, with a file name that made my blood run cold. Meridian and file _ zip. My hands trembled as I clicked through his recent files. Folder after folder of my work, meticulously organized and time-stamped. Every conversation we'd had about my projects, every blueprint I'd shared in excited moments of creative breakthrough, every proprietary technique I'd developed, all stolen and packaged for sale. The destination email made me nauseous. v.sterling@sterlingindustries.com. Sterling Industries, our firm's primary competitor for the Meridian contract. I kept clicking, each discovery worse than the last. Encrypted chat logs revealing months of communication with Victoria Sterling, the young CEO who'd inherited her father's empire. Photos of them together at business dinners, at conferences, at hotels. Timestamps proving he'd been with her the same nights he'd told me he was traveling for work. Then I found the contracts. Payment schedules detailing exactly how much he'd received for each piece of stolen intellectual property. My designs, my innovations, my soul's work reduced to line items in a transaction log. The total made me gasp. Over $200,000 across 6 months. The bathroom door opened behind me. Damien emerged in his robe, stopping short when he saw me frozen at his laptop, tears streaming down my face. Belle, he started, but the guilt in his expression confirmed everything. How long? My voice sounded foreign, hollow. How long have you been stealing from me? He had the audacity to sigh, as if I were being tedious. From the beginning, he admitted, crossing his arms. Victoria needed someone on the inside at Thornton & Associates. You were perfect, talented, naive, desperate for validation. Each word landed like a physical blow. Our relationship, everything between us, was business, he finished, his tone shifting from caught criminal to cold executive. You're good at what you do, Isabel. Your designs are worth millions. But you lack the killer instinct to capitalize on them yourself. I simply found someone who could. I loved you, I whispered, hating how weak it sounded. Damien had the decency to look almost apologetic. I'm sorry you got hurt. That wasn't the intention. But business is business, sweetheart. You were just too easy. He packed his belongings that night while I sat frozen on the couch, my entire reality crumbling. Before leaving, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, some of it was real. You're extraordinary, Belle. Just not extraordinary enough to choose over a 7-figure opportunity. The destruction came swiftly and systematically. 2 days before my presentation, Richard Thornton, my mentor and father figure, called me into his office. His usually warm expression had turned to stone. Isabel, we've received some disturbing information, he said, not inviting me to sit. Evidence that you've been selling our proprietary designs to Sterling Industries. What? No, Richard, that's insane. He turned his computer screen toward me. There, in what appeared to be my email account, were messages detailing the sale of Thornton designs to our competitors. File transfers with my digital signature. Bank transfers to an offshore account allegedly in my name. This is a setup, I insisted, my voice rising with panic. Damien Blackwood, he's been. Mr. Blackwood is the one who brought this to our attention, Richard interrupted coldly. He came to us yesterday, devastated to discover his girlfriend's betrayal. He provided all the evidence we needed. The room tilted. Damien hadn't just stolen from me. He'd framed me perfectly, positioning himself as the concerned whistleblower while I became the villain. The board has voted unanimously, Richard continued, each word precise as a scalpel. You're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. We're also pursuing legal action for the damages you've caused. Richard, please, you've known me for 5 years. I thought I knew you, he said, and the disappointment in his voice broke something fundamental inside me. Clear out your desk. I never want to see you in this building again. The security escort through the office, past colleagues who'd become friends, might as well have been a perp walk. Their stares ranged from shock to disgust to pity. No one spoke to me. No one met my eyes except to glare. My mentor's protégé had become his greatest betrayal. The media coverage started that evening. Rising architect falls from grace in corporate espionage scandal. My photo, taken at an awards ceremony just months earlier, smiling and proud, now captioned with words like alleged thief and corporate spy. The architecture community was small and tightly knit. By morning, I was radioactive. My lawyer, a public defender I could barely afford, delivered more bad news. They've built an airtight case. Every piece of evidence points to you. Without proof of Damien Blackwood's involvement, which we don't have, you're looking at civil damages that could bankrupt you for life. The legal battles consumed my savings in weeks. Every firm I'd worked with severed ties immediately. References I'd counted on evaporated. Job applications went unanswered. My industry connections vanished like smoke. I'd been blacklisted so thoroughly that even entry-level drafting positions were denied to me. 3 months after that devastating night, I was evicted from the apartment Damien and I had shared. The landlord apologized, but alleged criminals weren't welcome in his building. I moved into a weekly rate motel on the outskirts of the city, the kind where the carpet never looked clean and sirens wailed through thin walls. I watched from that motel room as Sterling Industries won the Meridian contract. The press release featured my designs presented as Victoria Sterling's innovative vision. The architectural journals praised her genius, her attention to sustainable detail, her unique structural concepts. Everything I'd created, credited to someone else, while I couldn't even afford groceries. Then came the engagement announcement. Business power couple. Victoria Sterling and Damien Blackwood to Wednesday. The photo showed them at some gala. Her in a stunning gown, him in a tuxedo, both smiling like they owned the world. Because they did. They'd stolen mine and built their paradise on my ruins. I stood on the motel balcony that night, looking at the city lights below, contemplating how easy it would be to simply let go. To stop fighting a battle I'd already lost. To accept that some people were predators and others were prey, and I'd been foolish enough to believe I was anything other than victim. My phone buzzed with another rejection email. But below it was something else. A message from an unknown sender containing a single file. A financial transaction record showing a suspicious payment from Sterling Industries to an offshore account registered to Damian Blackwood. Timestamped the day after my termination. The amount matched exactly what I'd allegedly received for stealing the designs. Someone knew the truth. Someone was watching. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. The despair hardened into determination. The grief crystallized into purpose. They tried to destroy me, and they'd nearly succeeded. But I wasn't finished yet. I spent that night digging through every piece of information I could find about Damian Blackwood. His past employment, his former girlfriends, his business associates. Patterns emerged in the darkness. 3 other women architects in different cities, all with similar stories of whirlwind romances followed by career destruction. All blamed for selling designs that later appeared under different companies' names. He'd done this before. Multiple times. And gotten away with it every time. The next morning I found Marcus way through a contact from my law school roommate, who'd gone into criminal defense. He worked in the gray spaces of investigation, the kind of research that didn't always follow legal channels but produced undeniable results. His office was a converted warehouse in the industrial district, filled with computer monitors and filing cabinets. "I can't pay you much," I admitted after explaining my situation. Marcus studied me with sharp, calculating eyes. He was maybe 40, with silver threading through his black hair and the bearing of someone who'd seen humanity's worst and stopped being surprised. "I don't want money," he said finally. "I want to take down a predator. Damian Blackwood has destroyed too many lives. If you're serious about making him pay, I can help you. But you need to understand something first." He leaned forward, his expression intense. "If you want revenge, really want justice, you can't do it as Isabel Chan. That woman is destroyed, blacklisted, powerless. If you want to fight back, you'll need to become someone new. Someone strong enough to infiltrate his world, smart enough to beat him at his own game, and ruthless enough to burn everything he's built to the ground." I thought about the woman I'd been. The trusting architect who believed in love and fairness and hard work. That woman was gone, murdered by Damian's betrayal. Something else had risen from her ashes. "Tell me what I need to do," I said, and heard the steel in my own voice. Marcus smiled grimly. "First, we resurrect you as someone he'll never see coming." Part 2. The Phoenix. 6 months transformed me into someone unrecognizable. The woman who stared back from the mirror bore little resemblance to Isabel Chan. My naturally dark hair was now highlighted with subtle copper tones, cut into a sleek bob that framed sharper cheekbones earned through stress and intentional weight management. Designer glasses replaced my contacts, giving me an intellectual edge. My wardrobe shifted from practical architect wear to power suits that commanded attention. But the real transformation ran deeper than appearance. Marcus Way had become my teacher in the art of reinvention. His warehouse office transformed into my classroom, where I learned skills no architecture program ever taught. "Corporate espionage isn't just about stealing information," Marcus explained during one of our sessions, multiple monitors glowing in the dim light. "It's about understanding psychology, manipulation, and power dynamics. Damian won because he understood how to exploit trust. You'll win by becoming someone he'll never suspect." I absorbed everything. Business law because I needed to understand the legal frameworks Damian operated within. Financial forensics because money left trails even careful criminals couldn't completely erase. Digital investigation techniques that skirted the edges of legality, but revealed truths hidden in encrypted files and deleted emails. Social engineering, learning how to read people, manipulate conversations, and extract information without anyone realizing they'd given it. The nights blurred together. I worked 3 jobs during the day: barista at dawn, data entry in the afternoon, restaurant server at night, banking every dollar for my eventual campaign. The hours between midnight and sunrise belonged to my education. Marcus connected me with specialists. A retired FBI forensic accountant who taught me to trace money through shell corporations, a white hat hacker who showed me how to legally access public databases and piece together corporate structures, a former intelligence officer who trained me in surveillance and counter-surveillance. "You're not fighting fire with fire," Marcus told me during a particularly brutal training session where I'd spent 12 hours analyzing Damian's financial history. "You're becoming the inferno." The investigation revealed patterns that turned my stomach. Damian Blackwood wasn't even his real name. He'd been born David Brennan in Cleveland, adopted the Blackwood identity 7 years ago after his first major score. 5 women before me, all architects or designers, all romanced, exploited, framed, and destroyed. The financial trails led back to shell companies, offshore accounts, and eventually to Sterling Industries, though Victoria Sterling's personal involvement remained unclear. What I discovered about his methodology was chilling in its sophistication. He identified rising talent in competitive industries, particularly women who were brilliant but undervalued. He studied their work, their personalities, their vulnerabilities. Then he became exactly what they needed. For me, it had been validation and romance. For others, it had been mentorship, friendship, or business partnership. He adapted like a chameleon, always finding the perfect approach. The evidence suggested he'd stolen and resold designs worth over $30 million across his various schemes. The current victims worked in industries from fashion to technology to architecture. All of them discredited, their reputations destroyed so thoroughly that any later claims of theft would be dismissed as desperate deflection. "He's a serial predator," I said to Marcus one night, surrounded by printed evidence we'd compiled. "And he's gotten away with it because we're all too isolated, too broken, too afraid to fight back." "Then we break the pattern," Marcus replied. "We don't just expose him. We dismantle everything he's built." My new identity, L. Morgan, came with a carefully constructed background. Investment consultant specializing in corporate restructuring, educated at Columbia Business School, previous work with firms in London and Singapore that were real enough to verify but distant enough to obscure details. Marcus had contacts who could create digital footprints, professional profiles, published articles, conference presentations, all backdated and integrated into legitimate databases. L. Morgan is everything Isabel Chun wasn't, Marcus coached me. Confident, slightly ruthless, someone who plays the corporate game better than Damian does. She's successful enough to be interesting but not so prominent that deep investigation would reveal the construction. I practiced the new persona for weeks. Different vocal patterns, lower, more controlled. Different body language, occupying space rather than apologizing for it. Different networking style, direct rather than deferential. I studied business publications obsessively, memorizing market trends and corporate gossip. I created L's opinions on everything from cryptocurrency to climate policy to restaurant preferences. The final touch was strategic visibility. Marcus helped me secure speaking spots at smaller business conferences, where I delivered presentations on corporate risk management that were compelling enough to get noticed, but not so brilliant they'd invite scrutiny. L. Morgan began appearing in LinkedIn discussions, offering insightful commentary that caught attention from industry professionals. I wrote guest articles for business blogs, establishing credibility in financial circles adjacent to but not directly connected with architecture. For months into the transformation, an opportunity presented itself. The Cascade Business Network's annual gala, Seattle's premier networking event where CEOs and executives gathered to make deals and forge alliances. The guest list read like a who's who of Pacific Northwest business power, including Victoria Sterling and Damian Blackwood. Marcus helped me secure an invitation through a legitimate client he'd connected me with, a tech CEO who'd been impressed by L. Morgan's consultation on a minor acquisition. I arrived at the Four Seasons Ballroom in a midnight blue gown that cost more than I'd earned in a month of combined jobs, but projected exactly the right image of success without ostentation. The event hummed with wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast flattering light over designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Champagne flowed freely as executives discussed mergers over canapés. I circulated carefully, engaging in conversations about market trends, dropping carefully researched insights that marked me as someone worth knowing. Then I saw them. Victoria Sterling stood near the bar, elegant in an emerald dress that complemented her auburn hair. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 32, with an intelligence in her eyes that suggested she was far more than the socialite heiress Damian had described. Damian stood beside her, his hand possessively on her waist, scanning the room with predatory assessment. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced my breathing steady. L. Morgan wouldn't be intimidated. L. Morgan would see them as targets, not threats. I approached a group adjacent to theirs, deliberately positioning myself where Victoria could overhear. The conversation turned to investment strategies, and I offered an analysis of emerging markets that was sophisticated enough to turn heads. One of the men, a venture capitalist, engaged me directly, asking about my perspective on tech sector valuations. The current climate rewards innovation but punishes inefficiency, I said, my voice carrying just enough to reach Victoria. Companies that can't prove their value beyond hype won't survive the correction. We're seeing it already in the architecture and construction sectors, where actual innovation is being overshadowed by firms trading on stolen ideas rather than genuine creativity. The pointed comment was calculated. Victoria glanced over, her interest piqued. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw her analytical mind working, trying to place me. The venture capitalist introduced me to his colleagues, and the conversation expanded. Within minutes, Victoria drifted closer, drawn by the discussion. Damien followed, his attention initially elsewhere until he heard my voice. I watched his face as recognition failed to dawn. To him, I was just another attractive woman in business attire, someone his radar identified as potentially useful but not threatening. The relief nearly buckled my knees, but I maintained Elle's cool composure. Elle Morgan, I introduced myself to Victoria, extending my hand. Investment consultant. I've been following Sterling Industries' recent acquisitions with interest. Victoria Sterling, she replied, her handshake firm and her smile professional but genuine. Always nice to meet someone who actually reads our SEC filings. Your pivot into sustainable development is smart positioning, I said, the compliment sincere even though I knew the designs driving that pivot were mine. Though I noticed some unusual leveraging in your Q3 reports. Bold strategy. Victoria's eyes sharpened with respect. Most people at these events offered vapid flattery. I just demonstrated I'd done actual homework. You're observant, she said. We should talk sometime. Sterling Industries is always looking for fresh perspectives on risk management. Damien inserted himself smoothly. Damien Blackwood, corporate strategy. You mentioned stolen ideas earlier. Personal experience. His smile was charming, predatory. The same smile that had captured me 2 years ago. But now I saw the calculation behind it, the constant assessment of how someone could be used. Industry observation, I replied coolly, meeting his gaze without flinching. I've seen talented people destroyed by intellectual property theft. The perpetrators usually operate in plain sight, hiding behind legitimate business facades. But money trails don't lie if you know how to read them. Something flickered in his expression, not recognition but wariness. Elle Morgan wasn't someone to underestimate. Victoria interjected before he could respond. I'd love to continue this conversation. Are you available for coffee this week? I'd be delighted, I said, handing her a business card that bore Elle Morgan's contact information and a minimalist logo Marcus had designed. As they moved away, Damien glanced back once, his expression thoughtful. He didn't know who I was, but some instinct warned him I might be dangerous. Good. Let him wonder. Marcus was waiting in the car when I emerged from the gala, my hands shaking with adrenaline now that the performance was over. He didn't recognize you. I breathed, the reality finally sinking in. You're not her anymore, Marcus said simply. You're the weapon that's going to destroy him. The meeting with Victoria took place 3 days later at an upscale cafe in downtown Seattle. She arrived precisely on time, professional but warmer than at the gala. We discussed business strategy for 30 minutes before she shifted gears. Can I ask you something off the record? Victoria said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. At the gala, your comment about stolen ideas. That felt personal. I'd anticipated this. I consulted for a firm 2 years ago that lost a major contract because a competitor somehow obtained their proprietary designs. The evidence pointed to an inside source, but the investigation went nowhere. It made me attentive to patterns. What kind of patterns? Her interest was genuine, intense. Sophisticated theft requires someone with access and trust, I explained carefully. Often someone in a personal relationship with key personnel. The thief discredits their source, positions themselves as the whistleblower, and walks away clean while their victim takes all the blame. Victoria went very still. That's specific. It's a recognizable methodology, I said, watching her process the implications. I've seen it 3 times now in different industries. Always the same structure. She was silent for a long moment, her fingers tapping against her coffee cup. If someone suspected this kind of theft in their own company, hypothetically, how would they prove it? My pulse quickened. This was the opening I needed. Financial forensics, I said. Sophisticated thieves are careful with intellectual property, but they can't resist monetizing it. Unusual payments, shell companies, offshore accounts. The money always tells the truth eventually. Hypothetically, Victoria said slowly, if I wanted someone to audit Sterling Industries' financial structure, someone discreet and thorough, would you be interested in consulting? I pretended to consider, though every cell in my body screamed yes. That would be a significant undertaking. May I ask what's prompted this concern? Victoria's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing vulnerability beneath. Let's just say your pattern recognition triggered some uncomfortable questions I've been avoiding. Then yes, I said. I'd be very interested. Within a week, I had official consultant status at Sterling Industries, complete with access to financial systems and internal databases. Victoria's trust, earned through calculated honesty, gave me keys to the kingdom. Marcus helped me navigate the digital landscape, showing me how to trace transactions without leaving fingerprints. What I discovered in those first 2 weeks confirmed my worst suspicions and revealed even darker truths. Damien hadn't just stolen my designs. He'd been systematically embezzling from Sterling Industries for 3 years, using shell companies and falsified invoices to siphon millions. The stolen architectural and design work was just one revenue stream. He was bleeding the company dry while positioning himself to force Victoria out and claim majority control. More chilling. Evidence suggested he planned to bankrupt Sterling Industries entirely once he'd extracted maximum value, leaving Victoria to face fraud charges while he disappeared with the assets. I sat in my car after that discovery, hands gripping the steering wheel, feeling the weight of revelation. Victoria wasn't my enemy. She was another victim, still in the relationship I'd escaped, heading toward the same destruction I'd suffered. The moral calculus shifted uncomfortably. I'd planned to expose Damien by destroying Sterling Industries, accepting Victoria as collateral damage in my revenge. But she was decent, smart, and trapped by someone who'd spent years perfecting his manipulation. The same way I'd been trapped. Marcus found me there an hour later, staring at printed evidence that proved Victoria's innocence in the theft of my designs. She'd believed they were Damien's work, consulted on them legitimately, never knowing she was handling stolen property. You can still burn it all down, Marcus said quietly, reading my conflict. Take them both out, walk away clean. She doesn't deserve it, I said. She's what I could have become if I'd stayed, if I'd married him. Another brilliant woman destroyed by trusting the wrong man. So what's the play? I looked at the evidence, at the financial trails that would prove Damien's guilt beyond any doubt, at the opportunity for revenge that had consumed me for 6 months. We save her, I decided. And then we destroy him together. The revelation came 2 days later in Victoria's office, after I'd requested a private meeting. I arrived with a locked briefcase containing printed evidence and a USB drive with encrypted files. What you're about to see is going to be difficult, I warned her. But you need to know the truth about Damien Blackwood before it's too late. I started with the financial evidence. Embezzlement trails, shell companies, falsified invoices. Watched her face shift from confusion to disbelief to horror as the scope of betrayal became clear. Then I showed her the pattern: 5 other women, 5 other companies, all stripped of assets and intellectual property. And finally, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, I need to tell you about Isabel Chan. Victoria's head snapped up at the familiar name. The architect Damien exposed for corporate espionage? The woman who tried to sell our designs. The woman he framed, I corrected gently. The woman he romanced, stole from, and systematically destroyed. The same way he's planning to destroy you. I removed my glasses, let my hair fall differently, met her eyes directly. I'm Isabel Chan. And everything he told you about me was a lie constructed to protect himself and discredit any future accusation I might make. The recognition dawned slowly, her mind connecting L. Morgan's features to the disgraced architect she'd seen in news photos. The color drained from her face. "You infiltrated my company," she breathed. "I came for revenge," I admitted. "I plan to expose Damien by destroying Sterling Industries, even if you burned with him. But that was before I understood you're another victim. He's stolen from you, lied to you, and positioned you to take the fall for crimes he's committed. Your company, your reputation, your freedom. He plans to take it all." Victoria stood abruptly, pacing to the window overlooking Seattle's skyline. "Why should I believe you? You just admitted you came here to destroy me." "Because the evidence doesn't lie," I said, gesturing to the documents. "Check every transaction, trace every shell company, verify every theft pattern. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the facts." Long silence stretched between us while she stared out at the city, processing revelations that shattered her reality. Finally, she spoke without turning around. "How long have you been planning this?" 6 months, I answered honestly. "Since the night I watched from a motel room as Sterling Industries won a contract using designs I created. Since I saw your engagement announcement and realized he'd done to both of us exactly what he intended." Victoria turned back, her expression hardening into something I recognized. The moment when a victim decides to become a fighter. "What do you need from me?" "Partnership," I said. "We have evidence of his crimes, but he's constructed plausible deniability. We need to catch him actively stealing or embezzling. We need a trap so perfect he can't escape or deflect." "The annual gala," Victoria said immediately, her strategic mind already working. 3 weeks from now. 500 guests, industry leaders, media coverage. Damien's been planning to announce his promotion to company president. Instead, we expose everything. I smiled grimly. "The enemy of my enemy might be my redemption. Or our mutual salvation," Victoria corrected. "Let's burn him down together." Part 3. The Reckoning. The 3 weeks before the gala passed in a blur of calculated choreography. Victoria and I became co-conspirators, meeting in secure locations away from Sterling Industries' offices where Damien's surveillance couldn't reach us. Marcus coordinated the technical aspects, building a digital trap that would capture evidence in real time. "He's gotten sloppy," Marcus explained during one strategy session in his warehouse office, multiple screens displaying Damien's financial activities. "Success breeds arrogance. He thinks he's untouchable." We discovered Damien planned to execute his final theft at the gala itself, transferring the last major assets from Sterling Industries to offshore accounts while everyone celebrated. He'd timed it perfectly, positioning himself to disappear with approximately $40 million in company funds and intellectual property, while Victoria faced fraud charges he'd meticulously constructed to frame her. "He's done this before," I said, recognizing the pattern. "Different scale but same methodology. Create chaos, let someone else take the blame. Vanish into a new identity with the money." Victoria stared at the evidence with barely controlled fury. How did I not see it? 3 years and I never questioned anything. "Because he's a professional predator," I told her gently. "He studies his victims, becomes exactly what they need. You were grieving your father, overwhelmed by inheriting a company you weren't sure you could run. He became your support system, your confidant, your anchor. That was the design." She nodded, jaw tight. "I want him to see it coming. I want him to know we beat him." "Then we need more than evidence," I said. "We need witnesses. Irrefutable, public exposure that he can't spin or deflect." Marcus pulled up contacts on his